From ransomware attacks to supply chain compromises, the Cyber Talks podcast will delve into the world of the latest cyber threats and attacks impacting businesses globally. Join us as we speak with C-level executives and security practitioners about the cyber risks affecting their business and how they're addressing these challenges. Cyber Talks is presented by eSentire, the authority in managed detection and response. To learn how eSentire can help your team build a more responsive security operation, visit eSentire.com. I'm one of your hosts, Tia Hopkins, the Field CTO and Chief Cyber Risk Strategist at eSentire. Hello. Welcome to Cyber Talks. I'm Tia Hopkins, Field CTO and Chief Cyber Risk Strategist at eSentire. In today's Office Hours episode, I'll be responding to some common questions and concerns posed by security leaders. All right, I hope you're excited because I am. Let's do it. All right, let's see what we have here. Oh, this is a good one. My team is currently evaluating MDR providers, but it's hard to really differentiate between all of them. What should I pay close attention to? This is a really good question, and I get it a lot. The challenge is that MDR is a service. It's not like you're buying a product and you can test it for this feature or that feature. You're actually testing a service to see if it's delivering the outcome that you or your business are looking for. So the challenge is understanding what that outcome is. Is it reducing time to detection? Is it improving your ability to respond? And once you land on that outcome, you have to assess whether the providers you're considering are capable of delivering that desired outcome. So, for example, if you have a lean IT team or a lean security team, you're not able to handle your security operations 24/7, you're looking to level up, right? Manage of your security operations program. You want to be able to expand the number of hours that you're able to provide coverage, ultimately to hunt for and respond to threats on your behalf. So when you're assessing providers, what you want to do is have that provider show you examples of being able to deliver those services for you. So you say, well, what if I had a ransomware event in my environment? What does that look like for me? What is that process? How is your team going to first detect this issue in my environment? What's the process of investigation look like? Investigation is key here because if assumptions are made, there's a possibility that whatever you think is going on in your environment may be a decoy. So it is really important that the vendor or provider be able to articulate their capabilities around investigation. What methodology are you following? How are you sure that you have full visibility into my environment? How can you be sure that the machine that you're looking at is the only machine that's been compromised? Really dig into that investigation process because that's what delivers the response action that's taken. So if a provider focuses on a single host, for example, isolates that host, if they're even doing isolation on your behalf, that's something else we'll talk about. They isolate the host and tell you everything's good, but then you find out later on that you've got other hosts in your environment that are compromised as well. So investigation is really important, and then response as well. How far does response go? How far are you taking this once you figure out what's wrong and what's going to be left for me and my team to deal with? These are all very important questions to work through. And I personally think that the scenario-based approach is the best approach because that's when things are going to be on fire, right? When something comes up in your environment and you need to be able to take action, what is that provider going to do for you? And it also helps you understand what does the makeup of your team need to look like? What does your team need to expect? What is the interaction going to look like once your provider reaches out to you? These are all very important things. And so getting back to the question, how to evaluate, how do I know the difference between the vendors? It really is, what are your investigation processes? What are you doing for me in response? Are you taking action? Are you sending me an alert? Are you going to provide me with details? How much digging in on my own am I going to have to do once you bring me this initial bit of information? And then you assess that according to what your business needs are, what your internal capabilities are, and then you can make your decision accordingly. Fantastic question. All right, let's see what's next. Okay. Another good one. I like this one as well. How do I convince my board that it's not enough to just achieve regulatory compliance? Well, This is a bit of a loaded question, but hopefully it is not offensive to anyone when I say compliance does not equal security. Because I can also flip that around and say security does not equal compliance. Now, I'm not an assessor myself, but when I speak with professionals that perform assessments in environments for organizations, whether it's to achieve some sort of regulatory compliance or to see how far away from being able to achieve some sort of regulatory compliance, like where are we, perform a gap analysis. Typically, you want to start with securing the environment and then figuring out where your compliance gaps are versus checking boxes for compliance and then having to figure out where your security gaps are. Okay. And the way to communicate this to the board, I think, is to make sure they understand the risk posed to the organization by not addressing the most critical vulnerabilities in the environment. And sometimes compliance won't check that box for you. So it's really important to articulate where the business risk lies. Get the board to understand that cyber risk is business risk, but then articulate not in a manner of bits and bytes like, oh, we need to deploy this technology across these environments and we need to move this to the cloud. That's not going to translate into business outcomes for the board. So the board needs to understand things like if we get hit with ransomware and it were to reach these critical systems, our production would be impacted in this fashion and we'd be looking at a loss of X amount of dollars. However, this control or this process or this procedure or this new team putting in place to mitigate this risk would cost us this much. And you compare those, that's a business outcome. And typically, I've seen boards be more responsive to that feedback. Fantastic question. All right, what's next? Wow, these are great. Okay, how can I make the case for cyber risk being business risk? My seniors kind of get the threat landscape, but I still have a hard time getting budget. I think this really does go back to the last question, right? Getting the board to understand senior leadership is the same kind of deal, right? You want to basically speak the language that needs to be spoken. You want to speak in the terms of the listener. So if I need to get budget from a CFO, for example, I cannot speak to a CFO as if I'm talking to my CIO. I can't talk bits and bytes. I can't talk feature functionality. My CFO is listening in dollars and cents. And my CFO wants to know if I put these finances in, what am I getting out? If I don't put these finances in, what is the risk to the business, right? So building a business case is not necessarily saying, hey, did you see the news? Ransomware is rampant and there's all these new technologies that we need to deploy and we need to go buy them. We need to go buy them now. We need to hire 10 people. That really doesn't translate into, okay, what's going to be the outcome of that? What's going to be the business outcome, the reward if we go down that path? So it really does come down to being a good storyteller, understanding the data behind the story you need to tell, the story that the data tells, but then telling that story the way that's going to be received by the individual that you're speaking with. Again, another great question. These are all really great. All right, what's next here? Oh, wow, this is an interesting one. All right, let's dig in. I'm a security practitioner, and I feel like my senior leaders are picking a tech stack that's largely ineffective for my organization's actual needs. How can I start the conversation of what my team really needs? Wow. That's challenging, but you might hear a running theme here with me. I like to say the word outcome a lot. And the reason I say that is because I've talked to a lot of teams, I've spoken with a lot of teams, a lot of business leaders where we'll sit down and there will be this objective. Okay, we need MDR. We need a managed SOC. We need this thing. We need that thing. And then you start to dig into the why. You start to dig into the process, the technology behind it, the processes, deployment, timeframes, and things like that. And all of a sudden, priorities shift and you start to go down a different path because there's all these questions and then there's misalignments within the team. It is very important, one, to begin with the end in mind. Where is it that I am trying to take my security program? Where are my biggest gaps? What are the biggest risks to the organization in terms of the most critical vulnerabilities in my environment? And how do I prioritize and then address those? So beginning with the end in mind keeps all those things in mind, right? Because then you can focus on the desired outcome. Don't lose sight of that. Again, present the case for the business risk. What is the risk to the business? What will happen if we don't do these things, or if we don't do them effectively, or if we don't do them efficiently? Paint that picture. And then how much do these technologies align to the desired outcomes? That is the most effective approach, meeting the needs of the organization. If you've taken a CISSP exam, if you've taken a CISM exam, there's a lot of information in there, but the underlying theme in all of it is protect users, protect assets, and align to business outcomes. And at the end of the day, that's what we have to do. So if the biggest business risk is a critical vulnerability associated with an application that requires a specific type of technology, if that is your most critical business risk, then you really can't prioritize, or shouldn't. Of course you can. You shouldn't prioritize other technologies over that. So it really is getting all teams aligned on what the desired outcome is, looking at that technology stack, and then challenging the team, saying, hey, okay, well, we all agree that this is where we want to go. Tell me how that technology that we're purchasing, or this technology that we're evaluating, or this vendor that we're speaking with, how is that getting us closer to this outcome that we've aligned on? And I think you'll have some very interesting discussions. Thanks for that one. That was great. All right. How do I know if I need MDR or XDR? What's the difference? Do I need to bring my own XDR to take advantage of MDR? This is a really, really common question. I think that, and this is world according to Tia, of course, I think that there's a lot of confusion in the industry with acronyms rather, and features versus platforms versus vendors versus service providers. And at the end of the day, the question is, what is it? What does it do? Does it solve my problem? Is it going to get me where I'm trying to go? Now, when it comes to MDR and XDR, MDR is a service. Managed detection and response is a service. XDR is a platform. So in the case of eSentire, for example, eSentire MDR is powered by the proprietary cloud-native XDR platform. Two totally different things. Service, technology. Okay. Now, that's the difference. Do I need to bring my own to take advantage of MDR? You should not have to. A mature MDR provider will have a platform that will enable them to manage your environment. The platform is where all the magic happens, where all the telemetry should be ingested, normalized, enriched. These are the things that are presenting to the expert analysts in the security operations center what needs to be investigated. But also within that platform should be the ability, to leverage AI, to leverage machine learning, to drive efficiencies within that security operations center, right? Automatically disrupt the things that we know are bad, continue to get smarter about the data that's being pulled in the platform, continue to do more and more and more. So you're not taking the data at face value as it's coming from the underlying technology. So again, MDR as a service powered by XDR as a platform, and a mature MDR provider will have an XDR platform at its core that enables your organization to bring in a lot of the technologies that you're already using in your environment. And of course, XDR being multiple signals, because the more you can see, the more you can do, the bigger picture you can paint, the more accurate your response is as a result. Hope that's helpful. Okay, folks, last question here, and we will be wrapping up office hours. Let's see what we got. How should I structure my internal team when outsourcing security operations? Fantastic question. And the answer is it depends. It really does depend on the size of your team, the expertise of your team, staffing levels of your team, shifts of your team. But in short, the way I'll answer this is based on challenges that I see organizations face when onboarding a managed security service provider or outsourcing their security operations. The reality is, typically when a security leader sets out to build an internal security team, there are specific areas of the team where you want staffing, right? You want analysts to be able to manage your SIM platform or to manage your EDR technology. So you want hands on keyboard that are able to look for things as they enter the environment and investigate to see whether some type of response action is needed. You need someone to perform some type of threat intelligence, whether you have an analyst on staff or you subscribe to threat intelligence feeds. You have to keep your technology up to date. It has to know what to look for. Databases need to remain up to date. As 0 days are released, technology needs to be updated. So there's all different types of areas of the environment where expertise needs to rely. Now, when you're going to be outsourcing your security operations, what you need to pay attention to is what of the needs within your security program are being provided when you partner or when you outsource your security operations. So, if you partner with eSentire, for example, we have a threat response unit that is made up of a threat intelligence team, a tactical threat response team that develops detections, advanced detection capabilities, creates run books, etc., and an advanced threat analytics team to help us continue to get smarter and smarter about the data. So, that is something that you would not need to build internally. Obviously, the most common thing most individuals are aware of when partnering with an organization like eSentire is a security operations center. So the thought is already there. Okay, I don't need to go off and hire a bunch of SOC analysts because I'm partnering with a SOC. But there's so much more that does, or at least should, come with a relationship with at least a mature managed detection and response provider. And so the goal here, I know this is a really long-winded answer, and it is really because it depends. It's going to depend on who you partner with and what they offer. It's going to depend on what you already have, what that expertise looks like. So it really is a matter of, okay, what am I getting from the organization that I'm outsourcing to? What do I already have, and where are my gaps? And can you negotiate for your security services provider to take on a bit more responsibility for you? Or if not, then, these are things that you're going to have to build out on your internal team. But at the end of the day, taking full advantage of a mature MDR provider such as eSentire, you want to leave the heavy lifting to that team, knowing where to look in the data for threats, or where to hunt, how to proactively hunt, how to respond when an alert fires, where to look for threat intelligence, how to apply that threat intelligence. So you want your team to be able to take that intelligence from that mature managed detection and response provider and help level up your program, right? You don't want your team in the weeds hunting and updating things and worried about threat feeds and new indicators of compromise or indicators of attack and things like that. You want your team to leverage your outsourced team as an extension of your team. So eSentire brings something to you, your team investigates, and then, take back the lessons learned, continue to mature your program, update technologies where necessary. So, the provider should have you covered externally so you can focus on what's going on internally. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of Office Hours. Thanks again for joining us at Cyber Talks at eSentire. I'm Tia Hopkins. Take care. To learn how eSentire can help your team build a more responsive security operation, visit eSentire.com.